The Virgin Mary lived with Saint John after our Lord ascended into heaven, and from Jerusalem helped the Church in its first steps forward.
Just now, scientists have finally found the hidden tomb of the Virgin Mary, sealed away for thousands of years. For a long time, many people argued about where Mary was actually buried, with 5 different groups each saying they knew the right spot. What does this mean for what we believe in Christianity? Before we explore this, it's evident that the truth is more profound than we ever expected, and this is just the beginning of what will surprise you. The Hellenistic Puzzle. To understand this mystery, we need to start with where Jesus was buried. After his crucifixion, Jesus was placed in a tomb owned by Joseph of Arimathea, a rich man who followed him. The tomb was carved out of rock and sealed with a large stone. When archaeologists found the tomb in 1867, they thought it dated back to the 8th or 7th century BC, but an Italian archaeologist named Riccardo Lufrani later said it was more likely from the 4th to 2nd centuries BC during the Hellenistic period. This raised questions about the tomb's historical importance. What we uncover next will redefine not just the history of this tomb, but potentially the entire timeline of early Christian history. Over the centuries, Jesus' burial place went through many changes. In the 5th century, a church was built over it called the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This church was destroyed in 614 but later rebuilt. Despite the destruction, the site remained an important place for Christians to visit. By the 7th century, people described the tomb area as a round building with 2 levels, which was kept even after several reconstructions. In 1972, a Franciscan friar and archaeologist named Bellarmino Bugatti dug further into the area. He confirmed it was part of an ancient cemetery from the 1st century. Bugatti found that the cemetery had 3 chambers, with the innermost one thought to be the actual tomb, which matched burial customs of that time. This tomb, believed by local Christians to be Mary's, was located in the Kidron Valley at the base of the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem. Over time, different groups took care of the site. First, it was Franciscan friars in the 14th century who looked after and rebuilt the church. Since 1757, the Greek Orthodox and Armenian Apostolic churches have been responsible for it together. Visitors to Mary's tomb today must walk down a very old staircase. Along the way, they pass 2 small chapels, one for Joseph, Mary's husband, and another for her parents. At the bottom, they enter a small, cramped space decorated with medieval religious art and relics. Although Jerusalem is the most accepted location of Mary's tomb, there are other claims, such as one in Ephesus, Turkey. Some say that Mary spent her final years there with John the Apostle. But this claim is more modern and doesn't have much historical or archaeological proof to back it up. Most of it comes from visions by Katharina Emmerich, a Catholic nun. The Jerusalem tradition, which dates back to the 6th century, has a stronger historical backing. Some archaeological evidence from Bugatti's discovery in 1950 also supports this claim, making it a more likely site for Mary's tomb. Yet other claims continue. For example, some Christians from Nineveh believe that Mary's resting place is near Erbil, Iraq, at the Great Mosque of Al-Nuri. In Turkmenistan, the Turkim Karaite say her tomb is in Mari, following Nestorian beliefs, while the Ahmadiyya community in Pakistan claims that her tomb is in Muri, at the shrine called Mari de Ashtan. However, none of these claims have been officially accepted by major religious leaders. Apocryphal writings suggest that Mary's tomb was found empty because she rose to heaven, body and soul, after being in the tomb for 3 days. This belief is the foundation of the doctrine of the Assumption of Mary, which says she was taken up to heaven without leaving any remains behind. This might explain why no one has ever found physical proof of her tomb. Yet beliefs about the Assumption differ across Christian denominations. Each of these different beliefs about where Mary might be buried shows the deep respect people have for her across cultures and faiths. They also reveal how history, faith, and devotion are deeply connected in the story of Mary, one of Christianity's most honored figures. The Assumption of Mary is an important belief in the Roman Catholic Church. It teaches that Mary, the mother of Jesus, was taken up into heaven both body and soul. This belief has led to many discussions over the years, especially about whether Mary actually died before her Assumption. On June 25, 1997, Pope John Paul II addressed this topic and clarified that Mary did, in fact, experience a natural death before ascending to heaven. There's an interesting story from the 5th century, possibly written by Cyril of Scythopolis, that adds to this discussion. The story takes place during the Council of Chalcedon, where Emperor Marcian and his wife Pulcheria asked Juvenal, the Patriarch of Jerusalem, for Mary's relics. Juvenal responded by telling them that after Mary was buried, her tomb was found empty just 3 days later. The only thing left behind was her girdle, which was later placed in the Church of Gethsemane. By the year 452, this relic was moved to Constantinople and housed in the Church of Our Lady of Blachernae. Some versions of the story even suggest that Mary dropped her girdle at the tomb as she was assumed into heaven. The Assumption of Mary is one of 4 major Marian doctrines in the Roman Catholic Church. It was officially declared by Pope Pius XII on November 1, 1950, through a document called Munificentissimus Deus. This doctrine is closely related to another important belief, the Immaculate Conception, which says that Mary was born without sin. Both of these beliefs emphasize Mary's special role as the mother of Jesus, who Christians believe is the Son of God. The doctrine of the Assumption doesn't specifically say whether Mary died or not, which has led to 2 different interpretations. Some believe she died first, this is called the mortalistic interpretation, while others believe she was taken up into heaven alive, the immortalistic interpretation. Both views are accepted within the Catholic and Eastern Catholic traditions. The Eastern Orthodox Church has a similar belief called the dormition, which means falling asleep. This belief suggests that Mary did not experience death in the way most people do, but rather passed away peacefully. However, this idea is not formally defined as official doctrine. Pope Pius II once said that the belief in Mary's Assumption could strengthen Christians' faith in their own resurrection. The idea is that just as Mary was taken to heaven, so too will the faithful be resurrected after death. The story of Mary's Assumption has different versions depending on the source. Some say her Assumption took place in Ephesus, at what is known as the House of the Virgin Mary, though this is a more recent and local tradition. Most ancient traditions, however, say that Mary's life ended in Jerusalem. By the 7th century, there was even a story that the Apostle Thomas missed Mary's death. When he arrived, the tomb was reopened and found empty, with only her clothes left behind. Some versions of this story even depict Mary dropping her belt from heaven to Thomas as proof of her Assumption. This scene has been depicted in many paintings over the years. By the 5th century, celebrations of Mary's Assumption had already begun. Emperor Maurice established the tradition around 600 AD. Later writings, although sometimes seen as unreliable, such as De Obitu S Domine and De Transitu Virginis, continued to support the belief in Mary's Assumption. Important figures in history like Dionysius the Areopagite and Gregory of Tours also wrote about Mary's Assumption, helping to spread the belief even further. Some scholars think these stories may have come from ancient Christian writings that aren't part of the Bible today. These stories were likely known by Jewish Christians in Jerusalem and passed down orally during the time of the Apostles. Even though they were based on real events, they evolved over time. Stephen J. Shoemaker, a scholar who studies early Christianity, says that these stories developed from a variety of sources over many years. He believes the first written story about Mary's end and her Assumption appears in a book called Liber Requie Mariae, which dates back to the 2nd or 3rd century. This shows that the veneration of Mary's Assumption began quite early. Still, there isn't much evidence of this belief before the 5th century. One exception is the work of Epiphanius of Salamis in the 4th century. He searched for reliable information about how Mary's life ended but found none. This lack of information shows that even early on, Christians didn't agree on what happened to Mary. The fact that the New Testament doesn't describe Mary's death only adds to the uncertainty. Despite the uncertainty, the belief in Mary's Assumption has grown over time and remains a central part of Catholic tradition. Famous sites dedicated to Mary, like Our Lady of Fatima in Portugal, Our Lady of Lourdes in France, and Our Lady of Guadalupe in Mexico City, are visited by millions of people every year. These places, along with Mary's important role in the stories of Jesus' birth and death, show just how significant she is in the lives of Christians. So while there are different versions of what happened to Mary and debates about whether she died or not, one thing is clear. Mary's Assumption continues to inspire and comfort millions of people around the world. And as new discoveries or interpretations arise, the story of her Assumption might continue to evolve, just as it has for centuries. But what about Mary's life before these events? Let's explore her origins and impact on Christian beliefs. Celebrating Mary. Mary's role in the Christian tradition is deeply important, especially in the stories of Jesus' birth and death. She was chosen by God to be the mother of Jesus, a journey that began with a message from the angel Gabriel. When Mary accepted this, she became a central figure in the Christmas story, celebrated by Christians all over the world as part of Jesus' birth. But her role didn't stop there. Mary also stood by Jesus during his suffering and death on the cross, showing her deep love and support during the hardest moments of his life. In Christian teachings, Mary is often seen as the ultimate example of faith and devotion, especially as a mother. Different Christian groups view Mary in slightly different ways, but many, especially in the Catholic and Orthodox churches, honor her as the Mother of God. This title highlights her importance as a model of faith and obedience in Christianity. The New Testament emphasizes Mary's humility and her willingness to follow God's plan, making her a figure that believers have admired for centuries. While the Bible doesn't provide a lot of details about her life, Christian theology has added a lot to her story over time. Mary herself predicted this, as seen in her song, the Magnificat, found in the Gospel of Luke. In it, she says that all future generations will call her blessed. The Bible introduces her during the Annunciation when she's visited by the angel Gabriel in Nazareth, where she's engaged to Joseph. Her last appearance in the Bible is after Jesus' ascension when she's praying with the early Christian community. Although these scriptural references to Mary are brief, they form a key part of Christian teaching. Over the centuries, Christians have given Mary many titles and roles. She's called the Virgin Mother, the Second Eve, and the Mother of God. Other titles focus on her purity, such as the belief in her perpetual virginity, her immaculate conception, and her assumption into heaven. The Gospels also mention important events in Mary's life, like her visit to Elizabeth, the birth and presentation of Jesus, the visit of the Magi, the escape to Egypt, and her presence at Jesus' first miracle at the wedding in Cana. Perhaps most significantly, she was there at Jesus' crucifixion, where he entrusted her care to his disciple John. While these stories don't give us a full biography of Mary, they highlight her crucial role in both the Christmas story and the events leading up to Jesus' death. These moments are central to Christian faith, and Mary's presence during these times is a key part of how she is remembered and honored. Christian teachings about Mary mainly focus on these episodes, though the way her life and significance are understood varies across different Christian denominations. Over time, the development of Marian doctrine has expanded how Christians view Mary. This doctrine has evolved and grown, reflecting how Christian beliefs about her have changed over the centuries. Early Christians wondered about Mary's role and significance, and this led to the creation of different beliefs and teachings about her. These teachings have shaped how Christians think about Mary and how they practice their faith. The way different Christian communities interpret her life shows just how much her story has influenced Christianity as a whole. As Marian doctrine developed, it had a huge impact on Christian thinking and worship. The titles and roles given to Mary reflect how important she has become in Christian tradition, not only as the mother of Jesus, but as a symbol of faith, purity, and devotion. Her story has been passed down through generations, becoming a source of inspiration and reflection for Christians everywhere. Whether in the Nativity or the Passion, Mary's role is central to understanding the life of Jesus and in turn the heart of Christian faith. Even though the Bible doesn't give a complete account of Mary's life, what it does include is enough to make her one of the most important figures in Christianity. From her humble beginnings in Nazareth to her presence at the foot of the cross, Mary's journey reflects a deep commitment to faith and family. It's no wonder that over time, Christians have continued to explore her significance, adding layers to her story and deepening their devotion to her. Today, millions of Christians still look to Mary for inspiration, especially in times of difficulty. Her story has become a guide for believers, showing how to stay faithful even in the toughest moments. This deep connection to Mary is seen in the many titles, prayers, and traditions dedicated to her around the world. Mary's story, though simple in some ways, has grown into something much larger, touching the hearts of people across different cultures and beliefs. Having seen Mary's influence, let's now explore a significant part of her story related to her final home. Mary's last refuge. One of the most intriguing parts of Mary's story is the discovery of what many believe to be her final home. Throughout her life, Mary traveled to different places, spreading the teachings of Jesus, which meant she didn't stay in one place for long. One of the most respected of these places is a small house near Ephesus, in what is now southwestern Turkey, near the town of Selçuk. This simple stone house, located in a quiet part of Mount Keresos, also called Mount of the Nightingales, holds a special place in Christian history. Its discovery in the 19th century comes from a story based on both faith and visions. Anne Catherine Emmerich, a Catholic nun who never visited Turkey, described visions of where Mary spent her last years. According to Emmerich, Mary lived out her final days in a peaceful, secluded house on a hill near Ephesus, where she prayed and reflected. In her visions, Emmerich gave detailed descriptions of the house, its stone structure, simple interior, and a garden where Mary spent time in quiet reflection. These visions were written down by Clemens Brentano, Emmerich's secretary, who was also a poet and writer. He later published them in the book The Dolorous Passion of Our Lord Jesus Christ. Emmerich didn't just describe the house, but also Mary's daily life. She talked about how Mary prayed, spent time in the garden, and offered spiritual support to the early Christians. The house was not just a place to live, but a quiet and holy space filled with peace, where Mary could guide and comfort others. In 1881, based on Emmerich's visions, a French priest named Julien Gouillet found the location of this house. The belief is that after Jesus' death, St. John took Mary to Ephesus, following Jesus' instructions to care for her. Many believe Mary lived her last years in this quiet and peaceful place. There's been some debate over whether this house really was Mary's home. Brentano's writings, while inspiring, were later criticized for being exaggerated, raising questions about how accurate they were. Still, this site has been visited and blessed by both Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict XVI, giving it spiritual importance, even though the Catholic Church has not officially recognized it as Mary's home. Today, this house is a pilgrimage site visited by both Christians and Muslims. Christians honor it as the home of Jesus' mother, while Muslims respect it because Mary is a highly regarded figure in Islam as well. She is one of the few women mentioned in the Quran where an entire chapter is dedicated to her. Though the house that stands today isn't from Mary's time, some nearby archaeological discoveries, like a baptismal pool from the early Christian period, suggest there was an early Christian community in the area, possibly seeking refuge from Roman persecution. Carbon dating of the site has shown that parts of it could date back to the time of Mary and John, but the search for definite proof continues. Even without absolute evidence, the site remains spiritually important to many people. Visitors often speak about feeling a deep connection to Mary when they visit this house. They sense her compassion, peace, and the quiet strength she showed during her life. This has made the house a place for reflection and prayer, where people from different faiths can come together. In fact, this site brings Christians and Muslims closer, as both religions share respect for Mary and her role in the divine story. Both Christianity and Islam are based on the belief in one God, and they share respect for people like Mary and Jesus, even though they see their roles differently. In Islam, Jesus is seen as a prophet and Mary is honored as his mother. The Prophet Muhammad himself said that Mary was above all other women, including his own daughter, Fatima. While the Quran's version of Mary's life has differences from the New Testament, some scholars believe that early Islamic texts may have been influenced by Christian stories, particularly ones that weren't included in the Bible. For instance, the Proto-Evangelium of James tells more about Mary's life than the Bible does, and these stories might have been shared across religious communities. In Christian belief, Mary's assumption, her being taken up to heaven, underscores her special place in God's plan. This belief, celebrated especially in the Catholic and Orthodox churches, shows that Mary's life on earth was not just important for what she did, but for what she represented. Her assumption into heaven is a sign of the grace and holiness she embodied, and a promise to all believers that they too can hope for eternal life. Mary's Assumption is celebrated around the world as a reminder of her unique place in God's plan. It is not just a celebration of her life, but a source of hope for all Christians, showing that they too can share in the heavenly glory she received. Over time, this celebration has become an important part of the devotion to Mary, highlighting the deep respect and love she inspires across different Christian traditions. Thanks for watching. Could Christianity and Islam ever reconcile their differing views on Mary? Comment your thoughts below, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights.